Hello YouTube, my name is Nero, and today we have some Call of Duty Modern Warfare Remastered, and I am here to answer one simple question: what is the worst weapon here in Modern Warfare Remastered? Well, I suppose the thumbnail as well as the gameplay are a bit of a spoiler, so I'll just come out and say it. The Mini-Uzi is, in my opinion, the worst weapon in this game. Now, before we go any further, I would like to say that while considering weapons for the title of worst gun, I did not include snipers, shotguns, or secondaries, because I don't really think it's fair to take those weapon categories and make them compete with, like, the Dragunov, right? The Dragunov can't compete with the MP5 in terms of overall viability and effectiveness in the vast majority of situations, right? It just doesn't. It's a sniper rifle. The same thing can be said for secondaries. You don't want to compare the M1911 to the M16 in terms of overall viability, the same way you don't want to compare the RPD to the W1200. Just they're in different categories. For me, it's not fair to compare shotguns, snipers, and secondaries to assault rifles, submachine guns, and light machine guns, right? So while mulling this all over, I chose to decide between assault rifles, submachine guns, and light machine guns, as they are the most effective weapon types in the vast majority of situations in the Call of Duty franchise. So why the Uzi? Why is the Uzi the worst weapon in this game? Well, the main problem is it doesn't really excel at anything. In fact, the Uzi is pretty bad in most situations. It just doesn't really serve a niche of any kind. Believe it or not, the Uzi and the P90 share strikingly similar stats, but the Uzi is just like an objectively worse version of the P90. They have the same damage, they have the same range, but the Uzi has more recoil, a lot more view kick, a lot more muzzle flash, a slightly faster fire rate, like we're talking 25 rounds per minute here, a smaller magazine size, and they have about the same reload time, at least in my eyes. And you guys are watching the gameplay here. I tried to compare the Uzi to the P90 in terms of reload speed. Now, apparently, the Uzi is slightly faster than the P90, but every time I ran tests in a private match, and perhaps I'm not doing it correctly, it always looked like the P90 was actually slightly faster. So it looks like the P90 is better in just about every respect, except for damage and range, where it's actually tied with the Uzi. The recoil is the biggest strike against the Uzi in my mind. It's so unpredictable and difficult to manage compared to any other SMG in the game, and even compared to like assault rifles and light machine guns, like the recoil is insane. Obviously, the Uzi is going to be good up close because of its really high fire rate, but even up close, look at the recoil on this thing compared to the P90. It basically just kicks straight up, and it's really hard to manage that even in like a 5-foot radius. And then the further you get away from that, the further out your target is, the harder and harder it's going to be to actually hit them while using your Mini-Uzi. So obviously you're going to burst fire, but even while burst firing, your recoil is still higher than, say, a P90, which is what I'm comparing the two here in this video. It's like, this gun kicks a freaking ton, and it's already pretty weak. Like, the Uzi and the P90 are actually some of the weaker submachine guns in the game. So you have pretty low damage, lots of recoil, lots of view kick, lots of muzzle flash. It's hard to use this thing outside that very close effective range. Now, when I was actually working on this video, I actually had a foregone conclusion that the Scorpion was probably going to be the worst gun in the game. I went into it thinking that, then I started testing out a lot of the weapons, and after testing the Scorpion compared to the Uzi, I decided that the Uzi is actually a lot worse than the Scorpion, because at least the Scorpion, while it is bad, it at least serves a role, at least has its purpose, right? The Scorpion can two-shot people up close if you're using stopping power, and it has virtually no recoil at all. Like, that is its niche. It is this weapon that, while yes, it has a very small magazine size, you can still kill people at good ranges because you have no recoil at all. If you are accurate, and of course the improved hit detection helps out here, if you are accurate, you can take people out at good ranges with the Scorpion and use it pretty effectively. It's not that hard really to kill two people with one clip of the Scorpion, whereas when you're using the Uzi, I find myself constantly running out of ammo on the thing. I find myself always missing because I'm trying to manage the recoil. It's a difficult weapon to use, and when posed with the question of would I prefer to use the Uzi or X, and I filled in X with every weapon in the game, there isn't a single weapon in Modern Warfare Remastered that I think I would choose the Uzi over. If I'm playing any map, any game mode, anything, and they're like, all right, Uzi or this gun, I'm going to take the other gun, because the Uzi I just don't feel it's really good for like really any situation. Like, I would choose the SAW over the Uzi, I'll choose the M60 over the Uzi, I'll choose the M14, the G3, the MP44, I'll choose, of course, the M16, the MP5, and the 74U. I would choose any weapon in this game over the Uzi on just about every situation. I'm trying to think if there's like a particular map or a particular game mode where the Uzi would outweigh any other normal assault rifle, submachine gun, or light machine gun, and I can't think of one. The only one that's popping in my head is if I were playing ground war domination on Vacant, maybe the Uzi would be better than the Scorpion, but even then, like the Scorpion, you can still pick off people pretty easily, and if you're always running into people, you can take advantage of that 2-shot kill range. So it's like, I think I'd probably still pick the Scorpion. It's just, I don't feel as though the Uzi's a very good gun, and I feel as though it's probably the worst one here in Call of Duty Modern Warfare Remastered. But of course, this is Call of Duty, and every single weapon is viable. I'm not here to say the Uzi is unusable, that you are some sort of a legend if you're able to do well with this thing. It's usable, right? It's Call of Duty. Every gun kills relatively quickly. I'm just saying that when compared to just about every other gun in the game, the Uzi just comes up short in most of the situations. I wish that the Call of Duty 4 / Modern Warfare Remastered Uzi was more like the Modern Warfare 2 Uzi, because it was the same gun, same damage, same everything, except it had a lot less recoil, which made it very easy to use. And in fact, that was actually one of my favorite weapons to use back in Modern Warfare 2. I liked using the more difficult, obscure guns back in that game, like the F2000 or the Mini-Uzi, because they were fun to use as compared to some of the easier stuff, like the, I don't know, the UMP45 or the Scar H or something like that. But ladies and gentlemen, that is going to conclude this video. I hope you guys all enjoyed it. I have come to the conclusion that the Uzi is the worst weapon here in Modern Warfare Remastered, but of course, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on that down there in the comment section below, and what weapon do you consider to be the worst weapon in the game? Now, if I were to go over every primary weapon, I really don't think it's fair to compare secondaries, but if I had to pick like a worst secondary, it's gotta be like, I don't know, like the USP or maybe the 1911, right? Like those are the two worst pistols in my mind. Like I feel like the M9 is a lot better than those two, and of course I think the Deagle's the best one out of all of them. But if I had to pick like a worst primary weapon overall, it had to be the Dragunov, right? Like I know some people maybe like the Dragunov, but again, going back to that scenario, right? If I'm playing like a random game mode on a random map and I'm posed with the question of, do you want to use the Dragunov or X? I can't think of a single weapon that I would not pick over the Dragunov for your average mode. Like if I'm playing Ground War Dom on Bog, for example, even then I'd rather pick another sniper rifle. If I have to snipe, that's the last sniper I would choose, and if I'm not sniping, then why would I want to choose a Dragunov, right? If I'm trying to like push up like an ACOG Dragunov, like why would I choose an ACOG Dragunov over like an ACOG M14 or an ACOG M21 or something like that? Like it just, I don't really feel as though there's a situation where it's a better gun than any other gun in the game. So probably the worst one overall is the Dragunov, right? But the worst one that's actually a viable weapon in most situations, I think, would be the Uzi. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is my thought on that. I hope you guys all enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts down there in the comment section below, and I hope you guys all have a wonderful day.